here at the touchscreen. We're going to talk about those 4 drivers. But first, during our marathon in Darlington last week, I sort of gave each of the 4 quick nicknames. I said the workhorse, Mr. Positivity, 7-time, and Mr. Good Time. And that got us thinking, you at home can probably do a lot better. So how should we refer to each of the 4 drivers? Send us one or all 4 nicknames for the bubble drivers using hashtag NASCAR America. And we're going to show you some of those. If you come up with something good, we're going to give them to you throughout the show.
So put them out there.
Yeah, let's go ahead, though, go through the scenario for each of these 4. Who do you want to start with, Parker?
Let's start with Ryan Newman. Mr. Underdog is my name, I would say. Or maybe the guy you can't pass. We're going to click on him, bring up his stats here for Indianapolis since 2014 because it's sort of recent stats.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about this team in the 6 car is that most likely out of these 4 that are racing for the playoff spots, they are going to have probably the slowest car. When we look at speed over the season and talking to Scott Graves and Ryan Newman at some of these tracks that are more downforce involved or a lot of times speed involved, it has not been their strong suit. They have not had the speed in that 6 car, so they're going to have to do what they have done all season. Their path in the playoffs is going to be either manipulating the strategy to gain stage points, as we've seen them do throughout this season, which they've been great at, or if stage points are not on offer, then it's doing whatever you have to do in stage 2 to get the best possible finish in stage 3. That might mean making that choice of fringe stage points in stage 2, but then having to put yourself in position to get the best track position for stage 3. That's going to be their path into the playoffs. If they do that, if you put Newman up front in a good enough position in stage 3, no one's going to pass them.
Yeah.
We know that. So that is their path. Use your strengths. Their strengths are they have been great at gaining track position at times and manipulating that strategy. Scott Graves has done a great job of that, and Newman does not get passed.
Yeah.
So if they do that, they could get in the playoffs.
And you heard Newman say he's cool with the pressure. He knows how to handle that.
Yep.
I'm glad you mentioned Scott Graves because Newman's crew chief knows Daniel Suarez very well.
He does, yes. He worked with him over at Joe Gibbs, won that championship in the XFINITY Series, and I actually spoke to him about this a couple weeks ago at Bristol, and he just said, you know, it would be very cool, be very gratifying to get in the playoffs, but he also told me the pressure has kept him up many a nights or even woken him up at night, so I can't imagine what he's going through this week right now, even though that time they were kind of in the playoffs. So now being tied on the bubble, that's tough.
Okay, so let's talk about Daniel Suarez.
Yes.
What do you feel like he has to do? I mean, really, all these guys are so close in points, so it's really what fits their style and what do they need to do to kind of surge ahead?
So he's on the opposite side of the spectrum of the 6, Ryan Newman. In my opinion, this is going to be the fastest of the 4 cars when they show up to Indianapolis. They have shown a tremendous amount of speed. I think to some of the qualifying performances at places like Michigan for the 41 car have been very impressive. They were very good at Pocono earlier in the year. So I think for the 41, Daniel Suarez, it is going to be about using that speed advantage. It means if they qualify up front, then take that speed advantage up to the front and find yourself in a position of getting stage points in stage 1. Get those stage points in stage 1. Put yourself in the best position for stage 2 to get stage points, which allows you a little bit more flexibility in stage 3. And if you have the speed in the car, if you've given up a little track position in stage 2, going into stage 3, you hope that that speed allows you to get that back. So he's sort of on the offensive where I look at the 6 car on the defensive. His path in the playoffs is using the speed that they have had this season at these type of tracks to their advantage. If they do that, then they'll find themselves in the playoffs.
And if you're keeping track at home, you're like, wait, that was the 19. Remember, Suarez was in the 19 last year at the Brickyard. So if we're keeping track of all the numbers, Suarez now in the 41. His teammate is the 14 of Clint Bowyer. So what does he need to do at Indy?
Well, so he's an interesting one to me, if we can get him up here on the touchscreen here. For me, the 14 car is probably in a situation where they just can't beat themselves. It has been, this last 10, 12-week stretch has been hard to watch. It's been like a horror show watching this 14 car at times. Find themselves either in bad luck or beating themselves in terms of making mistakes. Clint has made mistakes. The team has made mistakes. It's just been a bit of a bad scenario throughout the summer months here. And I think when you look at this 14 car, similar to Daniel Suarez, they're going to have the speed. They're going to be in the position to gain enough points to solidify themselves in the playoffs. It's going to simply be about don't make the mistakes you've been making. Don't put yourselves in a bad position. Don't take a strategy call that you don't need to take. I've seen them do this frequently this year, and I think that's the reason they find themselves in this position. They have the speed. They have the race team. Clint is a very talented driver that belongs in the playoffs. If they just do what they're capable of, this team finds themselves in the playoffs.
Okay, and you were telling me something earlier today that's interesting. Obviously, qualifying matters because it's so hard to pass at Indy, so track position is going to matter. but pit stall selection sort of out the door.
So so we're doing it off owners' points. So these guys will all pick at the same time. So maybe they'll end up near each other, or at least it's sort of a moot point of where you qualify. So that really qualifying comes down to allowing you to get those stage 1 stage points. If you qualify well, that's going to open up the door for doing that. It opens up the strategy, and those are going to be so key. I mean, watching stage points and points total in this race, it's going to be the biggest thing for these 4 teams because they're going to constantly be looking at that.
Well, we saw those stage points come in really handy for Jimmie Johnson at Darlington. They sort of did everything right early in that race.
They did. Stage 1 and stage 2 looked like the 48 of old a little bit. I don't want to get too excited. I'm sorry. But no, they looked really good. They had a lot of speed. They qualified really well at Darlington. So for me, this is the team that maybe is the X factor of these 4. They're the one that we're not sure which 48 we're going to get. Are we going to get the 48 that struggled through the summer months, that had the issues, that fell out of the playoffs to the point they are now? Or are we going to get the 48 that showed up for stage 1 and stage 2 at Darlington and looked like a solid top 5 car and maybe a race-winning contender at that race? If they can pull that sort of performance and have that speed, then it makes Ryan Newman in that 6 car seriously worried. I think that's what keeps Scott Graves up at night, is not trying to battle the 14. It's battling the 48 car showing up like they did at Darlington. If this team, though, is going to have to bring that speed because they're going to have to get stage points in stage 1, they're going to have to get stage points in stage 2 if the other cars have decent days, and they're going to have a good finish in stage 3. If their way into the playoffs is either a perfect day points-wise or a win.
And there's a reason we're going since 2014, because obviously Jimmie
he would have
Johnson's
a lot of wins.
Numbers would be a little skewed, and we know Ryan Newman has that win at Indianapolis in 2013 as well. But let's remember, anyone could win. I mean, Paul Menard is lurking back there. You've got Austin Dillon with that RCR power. If one of them wins, only one of the 4 bubble drivers gets in on points. So just one more thing to sort of put in the...
It's going to be intense. I'm just going to avoid those 4.
Because you're right, you're in the race.
Yeah, I'm just going to get ahead of them, never see them again.
Okay, that's your strategy?
That's my strategy. Just win. Yep.